every World Cup creates heroes. Some become immortal before the entire world. Their names appear on jerseys. Their goals are replayed for generations. Their faces become symbols of football itself. Pelé became the king of 3 World Cups. Diego Maradona became the genius of 1986. Lionel Messi completed the story that defined modern football. But hidden inside World Cup history is another name. A name connected to a record that has survived for more than 60 years. In 1958, a French striker walked onto the fields of Sweden. He was not the most famous player in the tournament. He was not expected to become a global icon. But match after match, he kept finding the net. He scored against every opponent France faced. He finished the tournament with 13 goals. More goals than any player had ever scored in a single World Cup. More goals than many legendary forwards would score across several tournaments. His name was Just Fontaine. His record remains untouched today. Yet many football fans cannot recognize his face. Many know the number. Far fewer know the story. How can the greatest goal-scoring performance in World Cup history belong to someone the world almost forgot? The answer begins in a time before football became a global memory. Today, every World Cup moment can reach billions of people within seconds. A goal can become history before the final whistle even ends. Every touch is recorded. Every celebration is replayed. Every player can become famous across the planet. But the first generations of World Cup heroes lived in a completely different world. The first World Cup began in Uruguay in 1930. The tournament was played in an era before global football television existed. Most fans outside the host nation could only follow matches through newspapers and radio reports. Players crossed oceans for weeks before reaching the competition. Teams carried their hopes across unfamiliar continents. The World Cup was not yet the world's biggest sporting event. It was a new experiment searching for its identity. But even in those early years, something special began to appear. The tournament created heroes whose names represented entire nations. They were not global celebrities. They were football pioneers. Their achievements were celebrated by millions of people at the time. But history would later treat their stories differently. Without endless television archives, their greatest moments slowly became distant memories. Without social media, their names could not travel across generations. Without a global football industry, their legends depended on stories being passed down, and some stories survived. Others slowly disappeared. The first forgotten goal-scoring legends were created in this forgotten era. Before Pelé, before Maradona, before the World Cup became a stage for global superstars, there was a striker from Argentina who wrote the first chapter of World Cup goal-scoring history. His name was Guillermo Stabil. In 1930, Stabil arrived at the first World Cup as a relatively unknown player outside South America. The tournament was still searching for its greatest heroes. The stadiums were smaller. The crowds were closer to the pitch. The world was watching football through newspapers and radio instead of television screens. But inside the penalty area, Stabil created something unforgettable. He scored 8 goals during Argentina's journey through the tournament. His finishing helped Argentina reach the first World Cup final. His performances made him the first player to become the tournament's leading goal scorer. Decades before the Golden Boot became one of football's most famous awards, Stabil represented a new type of football hero, a player whose value was measured by moments inside the box. A striker who could change the destiny of a nation with every shot. Argentina's supporters saw him as a symbol of their football identity. His goals transformed a young tournament into a stage for individual greatness. But unlike later World Cup icons, Stabil never became a worldwide superstar. His achievements remained trapped inside the memories of an earlier generation. The first goal-scoring legend of the World Cup became one of its first forgotten heroes. And he would not be the last. When people imagine Brazilian football history, one name usually appears first: Pelé. But before the world knew the young genius from Santos, Brazil already had another attacking superstar. His name was Ademir de Menezes. In 1950, Brazil hosted the World Cup, hoping to prove that their football had arrived on the world stage. The country built enormous stadiums. Millions of supporters dreamed of celebrating their first world title. And at the center of that dream was a forward with extraordinary movement and finishing ability. Ademir became the main attacking force of the Brazilian team. He scored 9 goals during the tournament. He finished as the top scorer of the 1950 World Cup. His performances helped Brazil produce some of the most dominant attacking football of the competition. He was quick. He was intelligent. He understood spaces before defenders could react. Inside the penalty area, Ademir seemed to know where the next opportunity would appear. But the story of the 1950 World Cup became defined by one heartbreaking moment. In the final match against Uruguay, Brazil suffered a shocking defeat at the Maracanã. The celebration that the nation expected never arrived. The tragedy became known as the Maracanazo. And over time, the pain of that defeat began to overshadow the brilliance of the players who had carried Brazil there. Ademir's goals remained in the record books. But the memory of his greatness became connected to a match Brazil wanted to forget. Years later, another Brazilian would transform the country's football identity forever. And when Pelé arrived, many earlier Brazilian heroes slowly disappeared from global memory. In the early 1950s, one national team seemed impossible to stop. Hungary had transformed football with movement, intelligence, and attacking imagination. They defeated opponents with a style the world had never seen before, and leading their attack was a striker with extraordinary instincts. His name was Sandor Kocsis. Kocsis was not a typical forward. He was known as one of the greatest headers in football history. His movement inside the penalty area allowed him to appear where defenders least expected. At the 1954 World Cup in Switzerland, Hungary arrived as the strongest team on earth. They had already destroyed opponents before reaching the final. Kocsis scored 11 goals during the tournament. He became the leading goalscorer of the competition. His finishing helped Hungary reach the World Cup final with dreams of completing their golden generation. But football history is not always written by the greatest team. Sometimes it is written by the team that survives the final moment. In the final, Hungary faced West Germany in a match remembered as the Miracle of Bern. Hungary lost despite entering the tournament as overwhelming favorites. The greatest team of its era left without the trophy. And without the trophy, many of its individual legends became harder for future generations to remember. Kocsis remained one of the greatest World Cup goalscorers ever. His 11 goals still place him among the most remarkable performers in tournament history. But his story became connected to a team that never reached football immortality. The world remembered the champions. The world slowly forgot one of the greatest strikers who stood against them. Then, 4 years later, another forgotten legend created the greatest goal-scoring record the World Cup had ever seen. In 1958, the World Cup arrived in Sweden with a new generation ready to announce itself. Brazil introduced the world to a 17-year-old talent named Pelé. A new era of football greatness was beginning. But before the world celebrated Brazil's young superstar, another player was rewriting the history books. His name was Just Fontaine. Fontaine was not France's most famous footballer when the tournament began. He entered the competition as a talented striker, not a global icon. But once the matches started, he became unstoppable. He scored against Paraguay in France's opening match. He continued scoring against every opponent France faced. His movement inside the penalty area created chances that defenders could not control. His finishing turned small opportunities into unforgettable moments. Match after match, Fontaine carried France deeper into the tournament. By the end of the World Cup, he had scored 13 goals. 13 goals in only 6 matches, a number that still stands more than 60 years later. No player has ever scored more goals in a single World Cup. Not Ronaldo, not Messi, not any striker from the modern era. Fontaine achieved a record that feels almost impossible in today's football. But history gave him a strange destiny. The same World Cup that created his greatest achievement also created another global legend. Pelé became the symbol of 1958. Fontaine became the record hidden behind the story. His 13 goals survived in statistics, but his face slowly disappeared from the memories of new generations. The greatest individual goal-scoring performance in World Cup history became one of football's greatest forgotten stories. For decades, the World Cup was defined by one special type of player, the number 9. The striker who carried the hopes of an entire country. Before football became dominated by complete forwards and tactical systems, goal scorers were the faces of national dreams. They were judged by one question: could they deliver when the world was watching? In 1966, Portugal found its greatest answer in Eusebio. Born in Mozambique, Eusebio became the symbol of Portuguese football on the biggest stage. His speed destroyed defenders. His powerful shots changed matches in seconds. At the World Cup in England, he scored 9 goals. His 4-goal performance against North Korea became one of the greatest comebacks in tournament history. Portugal reached the semi-finals for the first time, and Eusebio became one of the most feared attackers in world football. But outside Portugal, his World Cup story slowly became overshadowed by later generations of superstars. Then came another striker who defined an entirely different kind of greatness. His name was Gerd Müller. Müller was not famous for spectacular dribbles. He did not need them. Inside the penalty area, he possessed an almost impossible sense of timing. A loose ball became an opportunity. A small gap became a goal. At the 1970 World Cup in Mexico, Müller scored 10 goals. His finishing helped West Germany reach the semi-finals in one of the most attacking tournaments in history. 4 years later, he scored the winning goal in the 1974 World Cup final. His goals made him one of the greatest finishers football had ever seen. Yet even Müller would eventually become a player remembered more by experts than by younger generations. Because football was changing. The striker was no longer only a goal scorer. The world was beginning to search for new types of football heroes. By the early 1980s, football had entered a new era. Tactics became more organized, defenders became more disciplined, space became harder to find. But the World Cup still belonged to players who could create impossible moments. In 1982, Italy arrived in Spain surrounded by questions. The team had struggled before the tournament began. Their main striker had just returned after a long suspension. His name was Paolo Rossi. Many doubted whether Rossi could return to his previous level. For several matches, he struggled to find the net. The world began to wonder if Italy had made the wrong decision. Then, everything changed. In the quarter-final against Brazil, Rossi scored a famous hat-trick. 3 goals that eliminated one of the most talented teams in World Cup history. The player who had been questioned became Italy's greatest weapon. In the semi-final against Poland, Rossi scored again. In the final against West Germany, he helped Italy lift the World Cup trophy. By the end of the tournament, Rossi had won the Golden Boot. He had transformed from a forgotten figure into a national hero. But Rossi's story reveals something important about football memory. Some players are remembered not because they scored the most goals. They are remembered because their goals arrived at the perfect moment. A single tournament can change how the world sees a player forever. And this was the beginning of a new age. The World Cup was no longer only creating great players, it was creating global icons. Football was changing faster than ever before. The stadium was no longer the only place where history was created. The television screen became the new football stadium of the world. For the first time, supporters thousands of kilometers away could experience the same moments as the fans inside the arena. A goal in Mexico could be watched in Europe. A celebration in Argentina could become a memory across continents. The World Cup was becoming more than a tournament. It was becoming a global television event. Every 4 years, millions of people gathered around screens to watch the same stories unfold. Players were no longer only judged by newspapers and radio broadcasts. They were captured by cameras. Their movements were replayed. Their celebrations were remembered. Their personalities reached audiences beyond their own countries. This changed the meaning of football fame forever. A great performance could now become a worldwide memory overnight. A single goal could create a legend. A single tournament could define a player's entire career. The World Cup became a machine that created global icons. Diego Maradona's 1986 became more than a collection of goals. It became a story watched and remembered by generations. Later, players like Ronaldo, Messi, and other modern stars entered a world where every moment could be preserved forever. Their greatness was not only witnessed, it was archived, it was shared, it was repeated endlessly, and this created the biggest difference between the legends we remember and the legends we forgot. Today, football history is created differently. A young fan can watch a World Cup goal from decades ago within seconds. Every legendary moment can be searched. Every great player can be discovered. Modern football exists inside an endless archive. But the early World Cup legends did not have this advantage. Their greatest moments existed inside newspapers. Their goals lived inside memories of people who were there. Their stories depended on one generation telling the next. A player like Just Fontaine could create the greatest scoring record in World Cup history. But without millions of repeated images, his story became harder to keep alive. Modern superstars live in a completely different environment. Every goal creates thousands of videos. Every match creates millions of discussions. Every tournament creates a global conversation. A player's legacy is no longer built only on what happened. It is also built on how often the world sees it again. This does not make modern players greater. It means they exist in a world designed to preserve greatness. The difference between forgotten heroes and immortal icons is often not talent. It is visibility. It is timing. It is the power of storytelling. Football remembers the moments that continue to be repeated. And sometimes, it forgets the moments that were witnessed only once. Football history is full of numbers, goals, records, statistics written into history books, but numbers alone cannot create a legend. A record can tell us what happened. A story tells us why it mattered. Guillermo Stabile was the first great goalscorer of the World Cup. Ademir carried Brazil's dreams before Pelé became a global symbol. Sandor Kocsis scored goals for one of football's greatest teams. Just Fontaine created a record that still feels impossible. Eusebio became the heart of Portugal's greatest World Cup journey. Gerd Müller transformed finishing inside the penalty area into an art. Paolo Rossi changed his entire legacy in one unforgettable tournament. Their achievements are not forgotten because they were ordinary. They are forgotten because football continued moving forward. New generations arrived. New heroes appeared. New stories replaced old ones. The World Cup has always created legends, but it has never been able to remember everyone equally. Some players become symbols of an era. Others become names hidden inside the records. Yet greatness does not disappear simply because fewer people remember it. A goal scored in 1930 still mattered. A record created in 1958 is still extraordinary. A forgotten hero is still a hero. Every World Cup leaves behind two different kinds of history: the history that the world remembers, and the history waiting to be discovered again. The names of Pelé, Maradona, Messi, and Ronaldo will always represent football greatness. Their stories reached every corner of the planet. But behind those famous names is another generation of heroes. Players who played before football became a global language. Players whose greatest moments were captured by cameras that could not reach everyone. Players who became legends inside stadiums before becoming memories outside them. Guillermo Stabile showed the world that the World Cup could create scoring heroes. Ademir proved that Brazilian attacking brilliance existed long before Pelé. Coxis showed that even the greatest teams can create forgotten individuals. Fontaine created a record that continues to challenge every generation. Eusebio carried an entire nation's hopes on the biggest stage. Miller demonstrated that one touch inside the box could change football history. Rossi proved that one tournament could rewrite a player's destiny. Their stories remind us that football greatness has always existed, even when the world was not watching, even when there were no millions of screens, even when there was no internet to preserve every moment. The World Cup does not only belong to the players whose images appear everywhere. It also belongs to the players whose achievements survived through time. Because every record has a person behind it. Every number has a story, and every forgotten hero deserves another chance to be remembered. The World Cup is more than a tournament. It is a collection of memories passed from one generation to another. Some memories become global symbols. Others wait quietly inside history. But every great moment has a place in the story of football. Before the modern superstars, before the endless broadcasts, before every goal could reach millions instantly, there were players who created the first dreams. They played on smaller fields. They traveled across oceans without worldwide attention. They scored goals that changed tournaments forever. They became heroes before the world had a way to remember them. Just Fontaine's 13 goals remain untouched. The record does not need millions of views to prove its greatness. It does not need modern technology to become extraordinary, because true greatness existed before the world learned how to preserve it. The forgotten goal scorers of the World Cup remind us of something important. Football history is not only written by the names repeated the most. It is written by every player who left something behind. Every goal, every sacrifice, every dream carried onto the world's biggest stage. Some legends are remembered by billions. Others are remembered by history itself. And sometimes, the greatest stories in football are the ones waiting to be found again.